Welcome to Connected Payments with IXOPAY, where we talk to the payment providers powering global commerce. I'm Morgan Worrell here with Thomas Beinhart. Join us as we explore the integrations, trends, and tech shaping the future of payments. Today, we're joined by Ian Morrin from Tink, where he leads both UK operations and EU payments across 19 markets. A key player in driving pay by bank adoption, Ian brings deep experience from fintech leaders like Bud and Clarify. We're excited to have him on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Great to be here.
To kick us off, for those who aren't familiar with Tink, how would you describe what Tink does and why open banking is such a game changer for financial services and payments?
Yeah, so Tink is a open banking provider. We operate across Europe, across the 19 countries, as you said. And I guess take it right back to basics. There's sort of two component parts to open banking. You have reading data and writing data. So AIS is reading and PIS is writing or initiating payments. And we sit across both those capabilities. So we work with a whole range of customers, from everything from, what can we grab that data? What can we do with it? Can we enrich it? Can we provide intelligence back to those merchants or customers? And then through to the other side where we actually initiate payments. And we do that across a broad range of customers, from some of Europe's largest banks to merchants to PSPs.
Ian, since becoming part of Visa, how has Tink's role evolved? Especially what opportunities has opened up in terms of scaling your platform, expanding services, or accelerating innovation?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I think when you become part of a much larger organization, you've got to think about where do the advantages come from that. So there's a lot of benefits that come out of that reach. One is if you wander down, we're at Money 2020, if you wander down into the next hall, as you come down the escalator, you cannot miss the Visa staff and the presence that is there. So, there's a huge impact just in our reach and being able to get out into the market. There's the scalability factor as well. So, the Tink team's good, pretty impressive, but then you X factor that by the number of people there are in Visa across Europe and the number of touch points and merchants and PSPs and platforms that we can meet is just phenomenal in terms of those connections. And then just the knowledge and the technological capability that comes with Visa. So we're, effectively a fintech open banking business that's built along those rails. But then you add that sort of the Visa legacy of technology and the knowledge that's been built up over the decades that they've operated. That's quite a powerful force. And I think we'll see that, just becoming stronger over the next years.
Great. Speaking about merchants, what do you see as the biggest opportunity for merchants in regards to open banking, and how can Tink help them to unlock these opportunities?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think it does depend on market. So I think today, those 19 European markets are actually quite different in the terms of the way that they operate. And whilst the regs are pretty normalized across those markets, the use cases are slightly different. I think the use case that tends to, or the most highly adopted right now today, is like an account funding use case where you're topping up something, so a wallet, so either a investment fund or a gaming fund or anything really where you're in that flow. It's a really simple, easy journey for the consumer, and it's safe and secure and cost effective from a merchant perspective. We're seeing that grow phenomenally. And then you look in the different markets. So if we take Germany, for example, we use our data services there, our AIS, a lot to onboard into like direct debit flows. And there's a great use case with Deutsche Bahn, where in order to get your regular monthly ticket, you can sign up to a direct debit. They had quite a lot of fraud in that process where people were using either IBANs that weren't legitimate or making a mistake, of their IBANs to get their tickets. And now with a simple Tink account check in there, we're able to then onboard that customer much more easily. So the flow is easier for the customer. There's less fraud. Therefore, the total cost of that is much lower. And we were seeing some crazy stuff, like particularly on the Deutsche Bahn thing, where stolen IBANs actually were being used, but they're stealing like charity IBANs. So when they were showing up, there'd be all these well-known charities buying Deutsche Bahn. Hang on a minute, that's clearly not right. So just by doing that simple check, merchants can see those things. So I think it really does come down to the use case in the market as well.
But following up on this, Tink offers a wide range of solutions. It's from account aggregation to payment initiation to data enrichment. Yeah. Which use cases are gaining the most traction right now, and why do you think is it like this?
I think answer that slightly differently. I think it's really important now that you think about how you deploy an open banking capability. So if I go back and look what was going on sort of 2 years ago, merchants, PSPs were coming to market and buying open banking capabilities and just dropping it in anywhere. And that doesn't really work that well because it's less compelling for the consumer. But what I'm seeing now is much more thoughtful deployments of those capabilities, like the Deutsche Bahn example, like we're seeing in account funding examples, where the consumer's actually getting a better experience. And then we see just naturally that growth happening. I mean, a couple of big milestones for us. So we've now got 10,000 merchants. We're going over the 10,000 merchants live via our PSPs, which is like a really huge milestone to hit. And that's real broad adoption. We were talking earlier about how that's across the board from e-com to account funding, really anything. And then we're seeing that value go up as well. So we broke through the 100 million euros a day of money moved a little while ago. So it's a bit bigger than that. That's the stat I can give you. But, it's a big milestone. We're seeing those being ticked off faster and faster now. So it's great.
I think Tink is at the moment focused on Europe today. How do you see the regulatory environment evolving in Europe, and do you see opportunities for open banking adoption beyond Europe in the future?
We could do a whole podcast on that one topic, I think. I mean, I looked at this recently, actually. I did something on PSD2 adoption and whether it had fulfilled its promise and what does PSD3 sort of bring to the table. And I think that there's been, if you look at where we started with open banking to where we come to now, you look at the number of users across Europe, the volumes of transactions. Clearly, there's been adoption through that. There are still some challenges. It looks like some of the regs that are coming down the line are actually going to work and solve that. So some big milestones in Europe are the instant payment regulation. So from October, every Eurozone account or Euro account needs to be able to send and receive instantly and confirm receipt. So, it's a SEPA instant everywhere in Europe. That's a phenomenal shift. So that brings, e-com into play everywhere. I think that's really important. And then you look at sort of PSD3 and normalizing of the APIs and just, there was a rule set. Has it been evenly deployed in every European country? No. There's as ever, there's nuance to the way that's been deployed. So we then have to have a team of engineers who work on that continuously to make that work. Now we're seeing PSD3 is going to try and normalize that a bit more, put some more structure in there. That then frees up capacity for more product development on top of that, rather than just keeping the lights on. So I think actually the future in Europe is really bright from that. If you look outside of Europe, it's not my focus is Europe, but if you look outside of Europe, we're seeing, there's Visa open banking solutions in the US. We're looking at expansion into other markets. If you look at, Pix in Brazil, for example, you can point to many countries where there's open banking-esque solutions in place and where that's really being adopted.
Finally, what excites you most personally about working at the intersection of open banking, fintech, and payments?
It's a really interesting question, that one, because I think that we find ourselves, just by the nature of what we're doing, we find ourselves talking to the most innovative people in the most innovative areas of payments, because it's always people looking to push the envelope. How do they improve a customer experience? How do you manage cost? How do you make everything safer? So we find, whether that's data services or whether it's payment initiation, every conversation's actually somebody trying to improve the end experience for the end user, because ultimately that's what drives adoption. So I think just being in that point in time, and then you add sort of the Visa reach to that, I find myself in many, many really interesting conversations with merchants where they're trying to do new things and improve things. So I think that is fantastic. We have a great team that supports in that. So I think it is just, that nexus that you called out in the question is what makes it really quite exciting.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights and joining us today live from Money Talk.
No worries. Great to see. Great to be here.